We really should call it a poll tax. Poll tax, that's what the SAVE Act is all about. And if you live outside the United States, I need you to stop talking when you're telling us what we should do because you don't understand how it works. Because there's a lot of reasons why US Americans don't have passports. And I can go into that. But assuming that we just all have, half of Americans do not have passports. To get a passport requires a bunch of paperwork that a lot of US Americans do not have access to. First of all, it is super expensive. Do you have it? Okay, let's just talk about the birth certificate, all right? So this thing right here is a birth certificate. Inside of this thing, this has been apostilled, okay? This is, I don't want you to see my stuff, but just so you understand how hard it is to change your name. I did not change my name when I got married. First of all, you don't have to. Most people outside of the United States do not have to change their name, okay? Because there's this thing that happens where you never lose your name. Your last name stays with you forever. And then if you want to add your husband's name, you can, but you can drop it whenever you want. For example, I add my husband's last name when I go to the bank or do anything in the French system because he has a French last name and I get discriminated against for not having a French last name. So I add his name onto documents when I feel like it. And then I also don't have it on documents that I don't feel like it. Passport, like all the things, right? Because here, you don't have to do that. You don't have to just totally change your name and do all that labor for free to what? Appease the ego of a man? Because I promise you, most men would never change their name for you. Not only because it is what? Like they can't even imagine doing that, but also it is very time consuming. It is very expensive. It is so much paperwork. Do you have any idea? The only reason why I had to do this is because my dad spelled my name wrong on my birth certificate, and we never caught that mistake. My middle name is Ann, and he did not have an E at the end of it for some reason. All the other documents that I have an E on the end of it. I never noticed that on my birth certificate, because my mom had given birth, okay? So she was a little busy, and he's dead. So I found out after he died when I was actually trying to get married, which by the way, you see all these papers? All these papers? This is what I had to do just to get married, okay? The amount of paperwork, if people who are not immigrants in anywhere, like people in the United States have no idea how privileged you are to not have to have a passport, right? And not have to have documentation to prove constantly that you actually are here legally, right? Even if you are literally working and keeping the country afloat with the exploitation of your labor, having a passport is a privilege. Because a lot of white U.S. Americans in particular don't get a passport to travel, not so that they don't, get detained. Okay, so even having going through all this work to get a passport is something that a lot of people in the United States have been doing for a very long time. But to get a passport, you have to have a birth certificate, or you have to have all these papers to get a passport, right? And so this whole SAVE Act is basically to disenfranchise. It is a poll tax. It is a money and time intensive block so that people don't vote. And it is not just married women. It is literally anybody who's changed it. So that includes trans people. It also against people overseas like me. I will probably not be able to vote again if this thing passes. You know why? Because every time I try to vote, I have to re-register to vote because they just purge the records every once in a while just cause. And I'm always like, luckily I always check within enough time to make sure they haven't done it again. And every time they have. So then I have to re-register to vote, do all this stuff to prove who I am so that I can vote. But now in any future election, when they purge my name from the voter registration for some odd reason, if they're purging me, they're purging y'all. Okay? So I don't care what you are not safe. They could unregister you and then you got to re-register. and if you don't have all the things that match, and you have to go in person, which that in alone is a huge stumbling block if you are not near the place that you have to do that. Also, people in the military. Okay, I'm going to show you exactly in a minute. I've already talked about this, but I feel like we need to talk about it again because this thing just passed in the House, okay? The Senate, if it passes in the Senate, we are forked. This is literally a poll tax. And I will never vote again. You may never be able to vote again. Mostly women follow my page. You may, if you're in the United States and you're a woman, you may not ever be able to vote again, even if you're not married. Because if they're going to do this, they're going to do something else. If you change your address, okay? Oh, good luck. if you move, if you do, and like this bill is ridiculous. And also, it's nothing new, okay? Do you know how many people died? Do you know how many black people died in the South trying to get the right to vote? Could not vote until the Voter Rights Act in 1965 because they were doing this stuff, poll taxes, just all this literacy tests, all this crap, in addition to intimidation and violence and threats. Like, it was just not safe, okay? So even the ability to vote is not that old for many women in the United States. But a lot of white women don't think about that. We're like, oh, since 19, we've been voting for 100 years. You have. And actually, we would have voted a lot earlier if it wasn't for white women. My history degree, my final year, like my thesis for my was the vote for women. And I immediately had to change it to white supremacy within the women's suffrage movement, because immediately I was like, oh, okay, this is why it took so long. Because white women kept throwing everyone else under the bus, right? And a lot of them literally did not want black women voting. They didn't want any women of color, but especially black women. They're like, no, we want the right to vote, and then we'll help them. Yeah, right. So all this, Susan B. Anthony was not, Susan B. Anthony was the first person who was like, no, she's pissed that black men got the right to vote before her. Like, over 100 years trying to get this vote. And most of it is because white women wanted conditions. They kept us in the hierarchy above all other women. So if you think that any legislation that discriminates against anyone at the voter booth is okay, you are one of these people who is holding everyone back, and you're going to lose your right to vote soon. So let's just go back to this. Do you have any idea? I wasn't in the US, okay, when I needed this birth certificate because of the stupid E on my name in order to get married, right? I had to turn all this stuff in order to apply to get married. I also had to go up to the embassy in Paris, which is not, take a train up there to the embassy, hold my hand up, swear that I'm not polygamous, and then sign something and a little piece of paper, and that's part of my dossier. My mom ran around Nashville for weeks and weeks and weeks trying to get them to not only change my name, but also to get it apostilled. If you don't know that word, Google it. It's a whole nother thing. And that is after I spent a lot of time going down to the records place or whatever in Nashville trying to change my name. It took me years to change my name, just an E. But I knew if I didn't do it, then somewhere in the French bureaucracy, one day, if you get the wrong lady behind the booth, she'd be like, what? C'est quoi? Right? And then, no, name's different. So any changes whatsoever. It's not just for married women, okay? I know a lot of white women are concerned now because it might affect them, but I am telling you, this is so much bigger. And by the way, this is not just in the US, okay? There is a law that is going to go in effect within this year, we don't know when, that people here cannot get nationality without passing the B2 French test. French people can't pass that test. So that's fine if you want to live here and do all this stuff and be an immigrant, but you can't vote. You can't vote unless you are a citizen of France. So we got a bunch of us are scrambling to pass the B1 test and get our applications in time, because I don't know if I'll ever be able to pass the B2 test, which means I'll never have French nationality, which means I will never have that sense of security, and I can't vote in the elections that directly impact me and my husband's life and the life of everyone in my community, in this country. Why? Because of a poll tax, essentially. Because if you have a B2 requirement, which usually is only higher education level kind of thing, that is money, okay? Time and money. That is what this is all about, okay? Because in order to pass B2, I think on the news they said it would take you approximately 3,000 hours of studying to pass that test. Studying and learning. Who can afford that? Yeah, I spend $2,500 a year on my French classes and have every year, which is very expensive. That is all my spare money goes to learning French, and I still suck at it, okay? So every time they do one of these requirements in whatever country, wherever you are, to make it harder for the people who live there to vote, it is discrimination, and it is a poll tax. It's also so that Native Americans can't vote. Do you know why Arizona flipped for Trump? It was not because the Native Americans weren't willing to vote for Democrat. It's because they couldn't, because they've already been doing this there. They saw that Arizona swung for Biden, so they started enacting this so that it's harder for Native Americans to vote in Arizona, and look what happened. Anything that makes it a pain in the butt to vote is discrimination. Traveling distance, no more online registration or mail registration. Getting to a place where you can do all this crap okay? To be physically present, to change things, to get documents, to all that stuff. It is a huge burden. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and it is inaccessible for a lot of reasons, from being, living far away from the places, being disabled, poverty. There are so many things that stand in the way. So this is a poll tax, okay? If you cannot get to the place to have to do all this unnecessary crap in order to vote each time, then that's a poll tax. And the further away you are, the bigger the tax. A lot of people who don't have these, it's not just married women though, okay? That is American Indian, Alaskan Native voters, elderly, young voters, because a lot of young people are moving around all the time. And also the first time you register to vote, it is like harder. So young, like first time voters, elderly people, people who move around a lot, people who are unhoused, people who have, not much money. Do you know how hard it is to keep track of all these? I got ADHD on top of it. Yeah, y'all, it takes me hours to go through all these freaking documents every time I have to do anything for the bureaucracy in order to do things as an immigrant. But this is like as an immigrant with an enormous amount of privilege, right? And I live in a city, okay? It's like the prefecture is 15 minutes away. And we already saw in Kansas and Arizona when they implemented the show your papers law that blocked tens of thousands of eligible American citizens from registering to vote. Arizona's law, like I said before, blocked 35,000 voters from voting in state and local elections, including a disproportionately high voters from tribal land or college campuses. This is who they are targeting with this, okay? The SAVE Act would also block American Indian and Alaskan Native citizens' ability to use tribal identification alone to register to vote, because it would require to include the ID holder's place of birth in order to satisfy the act. But tribal IDs, like other forms of government issued IDs, do not include the place of birth information. So what are they going to have to do? They're going to have to include birth certificates, hospital records, adoption decrees, all this crap, which are hard to obtain, expensive. So just for anybody, this is for Tennessee where I was, but this website, Vital Check, this is where I would get a lot of my documents when I needed it. But if there's any change or anything like that, it's way harder. It's also expensive. Now, it can range between, just for like I just typed in birth certificate, okay? With like a simple birth certificate. That's not apostilled either. Just Google apostilled. I don't even know how to explain what that means. But between 11 and 27, that's before postage, okay? These are very vital documents. You're gonna pay a lot for postage. That's just for one copy. Look at some of the stuff you have to do to change your name. Like the stuff that women go through to change their name in the U.S. is ridiculous. They have to change it on their bank account. They have to change their driver's license. It is so ridiculous. And I want this, if nothing else to come from this, women to stop changing your name. Stop changing your name. And someone wrote on a video the other day, they're like, the reason why women give the men the children the men's name is because they'd never pay child support if they did. Do you think they're going to pay child support just because they have their name? If men are not going to pay child support, they're not going to pay child support. Their kid having their name, if that's what it takes for them to feed their freaking children, then I'm sorry. They're please be for real. They don't want to be dads. They don't want to pay to parent. They don't want to be financially responsible. They are just sperm donors who want social credit, social capital for having children, a legacy. They don't want to parent those children. They don't want to pay for those children. They don't even care how those children stay alive. A lot of them. So you think giving them your name, like look how many children are completely abandoned by their fathers and they have their name. Okay, so let's come on. Basically, this act is effectively going to end online registration for people in 42 out of 50 states. It's also going to end voter registration drives, as most people do not carry their passports and birth certificates around with them. Well, unless they're afraid of ICE. For anyone new here, it's $130 plus $60 to expedite. That's not it. I need you to understand that time is valuable. And this is like when I tell you, like, if once you start to understand that all these systems are about exploiting labor, okay? That is why, like, men don't see anything valuable that doesn't actually pay them because they don't want to see how valuable it is. But if they don't have a woman to do it for them, like fork them, clean for them, a therapist, a personal secretary, it's only when they have to pay for it do they value it. But they expect women to do it for free all the time. So the time that it takes to gather all these documents, the money, the gas money, to pay to get your photos, these official passport photos, to pay for these documents. It is money and time. And that is what it's all about. They want us wasting our money and time as much as possible so that we will not vote. Because some people just won't be able to, but those, like, I'm not going to be able to fly to Florida every time I want to vote. I haven't been home in 4 years because it's expensive. I'm finally going back this year. I probably won't be back again, but it is an enormous amount of money. So yeah, I probably will not, I will try, but if this passes, I'll probably never be able to vote again. Military people also, like the audacity to take the voting rights away from people actively working for the military outside the US, it is like, God! Military service members overseas will no longer be able to use their military IDs to register. Imagine that. And the impact is likely to frustrate young voters, 18 to 24, who tend to frequently change addresses. Young people move around so much, and oftentimes not because they necessarily want to. And this is all BS anyway. Immigrants who are undocumented are not trying to vote, okay? Like, there is no... This is not, there is no proof that non-American citizens are voting, okay? Y'all, do you understand? And I have an enormous amount of privilege with passport privilege, white privilege, able-bodied white woman, right, in France. Do you think the last thing I would ever do, and I am not afraid of being deported or targeted, is try to go vote. Try to sneak in and vote. Nobody who is an immigrant is going to purposely put a target on their back, okay? So the whole premise for this is ridiculous. It's a lie, and it is to hide the racism, misogyny, transphobia, classism, and all the isms. This is a direct attack on everybody, including just working Americans, because getting to this place during business hours is unbelievably difficult. If anybody has a normal job, to take time off, because then when you get to the place, then you're gonna wait a while. Okay? So you're lucky if you actually get accomplished whatever it is you're trying to do when you go do this. I can't tell you how many times I had to go to the office to try to get this freaking E added to my name on my birth certificate. And like they say here, why would undocumented people are not going to try to vote? Nobody wants to call attention to themselves. They don't want to go to jail, be deported. They don't want to lose everything they're here building. They are not doing this. And for anybody who doesn't, I need you to look up the Voter Rights Act, okay? I need you to understand what all went into getting rid of poll taxes and racist policies and practices that disenfranchised people of color all over the US, but especially Black Americans in the South. It was so dangerous to vote in the South because of all of this stuff and because of voter intimidation with violence. This SAVE Act would throw us back into a second era of Jim Crow law. Like, this is, everyone's calling it this. We all need to be calling this a poll tax. So this is what I'm saying, okay? So it's not, all the people have been, look, you have to go in person to update something as simple as your address change, party affiliation, simple change, you got to go in person. Okay, that may be simple for some people. This is very hard for a lot of people to go and a lot of people don't even know that you're gonna have to do all this until it's too late, and it's too late to register. It's gonna set us back decades in terms of sophistication and technology. That is how a lot of people, especially in rural areas, disabled people, just people who do not, and maybe elderly people, anybody who can't drive easily or just get to 60 million people, folks in the military, tribal, like I am telling you, this is including so many people. It's already illegal for non-US citizens to register or cast a ballot. It's already illegal. This is literally pointless in terms of what they say it is, and it is really about a poll tax. That's all it's about. That's all it's about. Again, there's lots of people it's targeting. Transgender American voter, millions of them. Okay, here's a number to put this in. Nationwide, approximately 146 million citizens do not possess a passport. To put that number into perspective, 153 million Americans cast a ballot in the 2024 election. Which is, this part is confusing to me because I'm like, wait, this doesn't even make sense. The majority of people who do have passports are in blue states, and they tend to be, like a lot of women who've changed their name tend to be, like conservative women are like almost always going to change their name. Okay. So like the only women who are not already doing that are usually more liberal, right? Or they're educated, they're Democrats or whatever. I'm sure there's some sort of rhyme and reason behind all this to benefit them, like the Republicans. Look at this. I hate this. A survey from Pew found that 79% of American women married to men have taken their spouse's name. And if you include hyphenated, that's 84%. We have got to get away from this. Let this be your final straw. Honestly, if a man cannot handle you not changing their name, that man his ego is too big and his entitlement is too big. For that is a red flag. You know what's funny is my husband actually wanted to add my name to his. They made it so hard for him to do that. He had it added on his passport, and they said that he was the first person who'd ever done that at that place. So believe me, if they want to, they will. But men won't do this. Most of them. And if they're not willing to, that's a red. So in addition to all the people I've already talked about, I'm in Facebook groups and community with a lot of people from the United States living overseas, and a lot of U.S. Americans are in Germany. Okay, we have so many military are in Germany. So that means their wives, right, or their husbands. Although I kind of find it hard to believe that many men would actually move for a woman, but whatever. We got a lot of people outside the U.S. who are not just immigrants, or they're literally working for the United States. So, like, doing all this, living in another country, bringing their whole family, and then they're like, what, we can't vote now? Yeah. This letter was sent on behalf of millions of citizens overseas, including tens of thousands of service members, their spouses, and family members. We strongly urge you not to do this. So this is what I'm telling you. So I'm not being paranoid here. It's like, oh no, I'll never be. If the military people are like doing this because they're like, we can't vote, do you think like other U.S. Americans living overseas, wherever, doing whatever, are going to be able to vote? Even though, look at, like, I didn't even know about all this, right? All this stuff to try to protect military service people from being able to vote, okay? So they're pissed. They're saying that it would be impossible to vote if this happened. And you know what really pisses me off? I am sure this is a white woman. When these stupid the Republican women go in there and then be like, how dare you use us? This is insulting and condescending. Shut up. When I tell you that women uphold patriarchy, especially white women, this is what I'm talking about. I don't even know what Mary Miller looks like, but I'm guessing she's a white woman. Just like that Laura blah. What's her butt? What's that woman who's like, so in case, if they get away with this, they're going to do this probably, right? Because this won't be enough. They'll probably bring back literacy. This is a poll tax, but it's not like a direct. They'll bring that back. Property ownership requirements. Y'all, good luck. You think like millennials and Gen Z and like people can't own stuff anymore? How about the boomers are hoarding it all, and the corporations are buying up all the houses on those. What's that website? God, moral character tests. Like, look at all this. Having to interpret particular documents. Y'all, I can barely read the ballot. The way they phrase things, every time I'm like, wait, that's why I do my research before I go in there, because I'm like, wait, prop blah, blah, blah says blah, blah, blah. And then I find out that the wording makes it seem like it's that you want this, but actually it's against this. So, like, it is already hard to figure this crap out. Yeah. Like, all this, y'all, this is where we're heading. We have been here before, okay? And I know that not teaching U.S. Americans our history is the point. That's why they're erasing things. That's why they're doing digital book burning, banning books. They do not want us to know that we've been here before, okay? But anybody who lived through this and whose family lived through this, right? So a lot of white people don't know our history. And I say this because I literally became a history major when I went to Montana, and I started taking class, and I was like, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? I was, the daughters of the Confederacy are the ones who changed the books that my schools used. So I had learned nothing about the real history of white people and what we did until I left the state and had to pursue an education, in real education. So they're doing this right now. They don't want you to know all this stuff. Here's some people were laying out the actual cost. Copies of marriage certificate, photos, plus the passport fee. That's not even it. There's gas, there's time, there's other stuff. People are also bringing up this, okay? Do you know how many women are in abusive relationships or out of them, but share children? This is why it's like having children with men is one of the most dangerous things you can do, because they're forever attached to you and they can control you through the children, right? So anything you want to do, a lot of times, if you leave the county or if you leave the country, you can't, right? Without their permission. You can't even leave the county or state a lot of times, but you can't do like very simple things because, The dad gets to control so much, especially if you left to escape an abusive family. I don't think people understand how hard it is just to get paperwork when you are running from an abusive person. And this is the loop they're talking about. And this happens all the time. You can't get a driver's license without a birth certificate. But you can't get a birth certificate without your social security card, and then a bunch of and this happens here too. It's like you can't get you can't get a bank account without an address, but you can't rent here without all this. Like, you're just in this loop of like you never have it is so hard to get just basic paperwork, y'all, much less change it. And even the government sites say that a passport is for traveling. Of course, now that's that we got ICE doing whatever it wants. And this person was talking about husband controls our money and my vehicle access. He's prevented me from getting one for years despite him having one. So just asking to get, I don't think people are understanding how complicated this is. And it is literally not about immigrants. Whenever they do anything bad, they always frame it about immigrants and trans people, okay? Because they can't say out loud the racist stuff as easily out loud. They can't say all of their intentions, so they hide everything behind immigrants and trans people all the time. And then, God forbid, you are born overseas, right? If your parents are in the military, getting this document. What about people who were in foster care? What about the adoption industry, which is a whole other thing? There are so many people who cannot easily access these papers. Okay? I promise you, this is so big. Do not let these cowardly senators get away with voting for this. Make them be afraid of having this on their voting record. Also, go check out this account. She is raising money to help fund Black women getting passports. I can't find her thread where she talked about it, but I think you can donate to her. Just please go on her page. This is on Thread. There's more about it, but at least she has pinned this one. So go check out her page. Look at her pinned comment, pinned thread to see if you want to help support this financial assistance. Anyway, that's 2 videos in 3 days about this thing, but I want people to understand how big of this deal this is. This has nothing to do with immigration. And if they pass this, the elections will kind of be pointless. Not pointless, but good luck ever getting rid of any of these forkers. Anyway, if you like this, please comment, share. Please follow my Patreon if you can afford to. That's what's paying the bills right now. Thank you, Patreon people. I'm going to start calling out your names sometime. And a special shout out to Lorley. Thank you. Every once in a while, people will send something on PayPal or Venmo or whatever. It's thank you so much. No, thank you. Again, I don't ever expect anyone to do that, but when it happens, I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, let me know what y'all think. Please add anything because I'm probably missing something. Of course, there's so many people are affected by this. And if you have any resources or whatever, share in the comments. But don't write websites because that automatically goes into the trash because of the AI moderation or whatever. So maybe just put in parentheses what people should Google, I guess. I don't know. It's frustrating. And let me know if you heard that comment song. Right, Mose? Oh, he's asleep. California comet song. Anthony went with me to California 4 years ago. And this is Venice Beach. He was like, why is that on wheels? And we went to Venice Beach. Oh, I had a cast because I fell on a trampoline the 3rd day. And then we also got hit by a truck while we were there. Anyway, long story. California comet song. Anthony was like, what is this? Well, okay, anyway, he's fascinated with United States in general, but this place. Anyway, he tried to smoke cigarettes when we went to the beach. He's French, of course. French people smoke. I don't get it. Anyway, not all French people. Anyway, he couldn't believe this stuff like this. He couldn't believe that they were policing people on the beach from not only drinking, but literally smoking. You had to go to the parking lot to smoke a cigarette. But he saw this. In French, it's called Lettre Malibu. Not Baywatch. Anyway. Follow my Patreon for more travel content because we're going back to the U.S. this summer because I haven't seen my mom in 4 years, but we're a little scared because they're checking phones. Let's hope they don't Google me when I try to get in the country anyway. Follow me on Patreon because I got a lot of stuff, travel stuff coming up. Anyway, let me know if you heard the Malibu Alert comment song.